coming up for you. You should see Varlo's face right. We've got Varlo Davenport. Hi, Varlo. How are you?
Thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate
Absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
I'm nervous as all get
Are
out,
you? You know what?
Yeah.
In 5 minutes, you won't be. Everybody's experience on this show, they're nervous for the first 5 minutes, and then afterward they go, oh, this is easy. All right, so I'm glad you're here because I'm sure your ears were burning last week. We were talking about too. Yeah. And your name came up on the show because the story came up, and I was asked to sign a petition. And on change.org, I think is where the petition is. And you are a professor at Dixie State. You were a professor there.
Yeah.
And just recently fired, recently let go. And the circumstances revolving around that is what caught my attention because I felt as if this wasn't fair. And I wanted to get your side of this, and I wanted to ask you some questions and kind of see where you land on this because this is happening to you right now. This happened a week ago, right?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of feel like we're still right in the middle of the tidal wave of, getting washed either in or out. But it is a recent thing.
Yeah, well, you had students calling into the show from different states. I mean, they were from all over the place, and it really caught my attention that they were calling in because they were praising you, and they were saying you absolutely changed their life. You're a drama teacher, right?
Yeah.
And that you had such a significant impact on their lives. And I'm telling you, it is hard to find a teacher where you feel that, and you feel such connection with this teacher. And from the students that are fighting for you, the students that have said, this is ridiculous, you need to be reinstated immediately, what is Dixie State doing? Because you're a much beloved teacher and have been a professor there for 15 years, a long career, right?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what happened so that we can sort of wrap our brains around this because I'm just feeling like this is not fair.
Okay, well, I'll do my best with that.
Sure.
And I'm sure you could find people who don't like me too, so it's not, I'm sure there's some balance out there. On December 5th, I was asked to attend a meeting where I was told that I had a student who was filing a complaint against me for assault. There have been a couple of rumors going around that this was actually a sexual assault. No, it had nothing to do with that.
I didn't think it was either. Okay.
Yeah. No, because of what was happening in an acting class.
So tell us about that, because this is something you've done for a long time.
Oh, yeah. It's a fairly well-known technique, generically called physical resistance, where it's kind of like having your big brother bug you.
Okay.
Punch you,
agitate
not punch,
you.
I'm not kidding, but
right.
agitate you, pushing you in the arm, putting hair in your face,
right.
Doing those kinds of things to elicit an emotional response.
Kind of those raw emotions?
Yeah, because that's what we're trying to do is access that, that genuine connection to the events that you're having. And so I had a student that I had been doing that work with who determined that was assaultive in nature.
She was just uncomfortable, or he, I don't know if it was a he or she, but they were just uncomfortable and felt like they had seen all the other students. This was happening in the middle of a class.
Well, it was. We had spent the whole day on this student, and I don't, her experience is her experience. I don't blame her at all. She had missed a number of classes, and so she may not have seen everything that we were doing, but it is something that I had done in class. It's not something you use all the time because not everybody needs it.
Right.
And
but you felt like you needed to use this to try and access those raw emotions in which, for the acting class, that would be something that would work for her.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Because we had tried the other techniques. We'd gone through 3 or 4 different approaches, and finally decided to try this.
And that's pretty significant that she'd missed some classes in which she would have seen you do this to other students, right? Or
I think so.
Yeah, I think that would make a pretty big impact if you see this and you see it going on. Then maybe to you it would seem a much different experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, in addition to that, at the beginning of the class, I pretty clearly state we are going to be doing some exercises that will make you uncomfortable.
Okay.
There are things that are going to, challenge you, but it will make it very clear that if someone gets to a point where they are uncomfortable, all they have to do is say stop, and we quit, and it's not punitive. I expect them to be able to take care of themselves.
Right.
You
Well,
know,
they're in college. This isn't like, the 7th grade. I mean, this is college students that are adults.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, and we repeat that throughout the semester.
Okay.
They're just trying to make sure that they know they're protected, that it's not, when you're doing that kind of work and you're making yourself vulnerable, it's really easy to be vulnerable.
Right. Had you ever had any students complain about this?
No.
Never?
No. And I've been teaching for 22 years now.
Wow. Okay.
And, that I am aware of, that anyone ever came to me or an administrator came to me and said, this, can we talk about this? This is a challenge.
So nobody's ever you've never even had a reprimand about this whatsoever?
No.
Okay. Not a concern at all. And that's a huge part of this, I think, is that you haven't had any complaints about this. And that's, okay, so go on with your story, but that's a huge part. I think that 15 years at Dixie, not one complaint, correct?
Correct. That I was made aware of.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you would have been.
Well, it's
part of the process.
It's policy,
right?
That if there is a student complaint, that if I understand policy correctly, that it goes into your personnel file.
Right.
And when I asked for my personnel file as we were going through and preparing for this hearing, there was nothing there but, boring, statements of class evaluations and things.
Which were good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not an issue.
Yeah. So I was invited to leave campus,
and told that this person had filed a complaint of assault.
Yeah, and there was going to be an investigation, that I had the right to a hearing, but there would be this investigate or this charge of assault.
What were you feeling? I can't even imagine. I mean, this has been 15 years of the Dixie, 22 years of teaching. I mean, were you thinking, well, surely once they hear what this was about, this will go away. This isn't even a big deal.
Well,
right?
I learned something. Somebody, a consultant, once told me that you should never go to a meeting without knowing what the agenda is, because if you don't know what the agenda is, you're the agenda.
Ooh. Yeah.
So when I went in and heard this, I was just shocked. And I can't, anyone who's been terminated can tell you, it just cuts you to the core of your confidence, and you start questioning everything. So first several days were really not fun after that. But then we started, seeing what was laid out and going over policy, and I started researching so that I could defend myself. And calling around the country, getting statements from faculty members around the state and around the country that this technique was something that there was a prof from the University of Utah who, when he heard about this, said, well, geez, I was doing this with my students an hour ago.
Yeah, I mean, this was something kind of normal in acting class when you get to that level.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we did that, did all the research that I could, and, put together my defense for my hearing. We went into the hearing, and, I presented it, and the result of which I was informed Friday before last was that the faculty review board exonerated me and voted for my reinstatement.
Okay, so that should tell a lot of people that this wasn't a sexual thing.
No.
Like that, people always jump to that conclusion. This wasn't a sexual thing because the faculty board, review board, would have never exonerated you had it been, right?
No.
And it really wasn't a physical assault, they determined, or they wouldn't have exonerated you.
Or
That's
there would
very
be
key.
charges.
Yeah, there would be charges. You'd be arrested, for Pete's sakes.
Right.
So obviously the faculty peer review board saw that this wasn't a big deal, that this was sort of, okay, he needs to be exonerated. This is, I think, in my estimation, they would think this is a little ridiculous, maybe even. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
If I'm reading policy correctly, I should have gotten the letter from the faculty review board telling me what their decision was. I don't know what else it might include. Right. I ended up getting an email from HR telling me that, but so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm actually reading it right now, the policy, and it says that they're supposed to report in writing findings, decision, recommendations to the president within 20 business days after the conclusion of the meeting. I would imagine in writing that would mean a letter, but okay. So they sent off an email, and so what was your view after you got word that they had exonerated you?
Cautiously optimistic, because the end of the email was, but the president has last say on all of this. But it was so incredibly heartening to see that my peers understood what I was trying to do. They saw all of the information that was available.
Did the girl talk? Did you have a...
No.
She doesn't talk at the hearing?
Yeah, no. She had made a statement to the head of security.
Okay.
And I was comfortable accepting that as her explanation of what had gone on. Yeah. So I get this letter, and I'm cautiously optimistic, but, Mama trained me to be a little paranoid,
Well, I can imagine why you would be. I mean, obviously you weren't expecting this. You were doing acting class as usual. This wasn't anything new or that you were trying out, or, you know what I mean? So all of a sudden you're kind of blindsided by a complaint that you weren't expecting. Rather shocked, because after all the years you've been doing this, you got a complaint. And so, of course, I would be thinking, if I were in your shoes, well, I'll be exonerated, and that's the end of it. They'll understand that it was part of the acting class, what we were doing, right?
Right.
Okay. So you get the letter, and then what happens?
The letter says that I will know by close of business on Tuesday of last week what the president's decision was. So we were on pins and needles until Tuesday.
Had you met with the president then?
No. Neither the president or the dean, or really even the department chair, has spoken to me.
This is incredulous to me, because they're deciding your fate, yet they weren't even going to talk to you. There's not even a discussion. There's not even a question. There's nothing they want to ask you.
Right, and it's like 14 steps from my office to the dean's office.
And they never went to you either by email or phone or, I don't know, a text and said, we'd love to just ask you about this before we make a decision about your fate as an instructor here after 15 years.
Straight to the nuclear option.
I am so dumbfounded at this. Okay, so when you read the policies and procedures for Dixie State, it basically says the president shall consider the record and the findings and conclusions and recommendations of the review board, and then based upon the review and without conducting another hearing, the president just gets his say within 10 days, right?
Yeah.
But I would venture to guess, if you looked at all of the past and previous decisions, that he took the faculty peer review board into that decision. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Had you seen that? Did you look into that at all as far as the other decisions that have been made? Because I would imagine that would be a big part. Well, I'm sure, I would venture to guess that the president would usually side with the faculty review board. If they're saying exoneration after meeting with you and looking at all the evidence, I would imagine that the president would then say, well, they looked at this, they were at the hearing, they found this information. I would venture to guess, if you looked at all the past decisions, that maybe more so than not, the president would side with the faculty review board.
That would be my
guesstimation, right?
Also.
I would think so too.
Yeah.
So you get this letter in the mail. He hasn't met with you. He's a new president.
Yeah.
You don't have a relationship, I would imagine. I don't know if any of the instructors have a relationship with this guy. And so he is the president, and all of a sudden you get this letter. What does the letter say?
The letter says that he, as president, has the option to either affirm what the review board said, to ask them to go back into the hearing, to restart it, to reconsider it, or he can overturn their decision. And he had determined to overturn their decision, and that was all.
And no reason.
No.
And this is one complaint by a student in 15 years.
Right.
I'm sorry, something just seems so wrong with this. I can't even imagine what you must be feeling.
Well, shock. Now, of course, it's a little more complex than that, but it's difficult to explain without us taking the next 5 hours to explain. But anything that was relevant, anything that was stated, the faculty review board saw, read, and I'm comfortable with that. So unless the president was given additional information
that you weren't too.
that I wasn't